Welcome into the latest edition of the Zone Heads podcast, presented by Kevin Crager, our go-to real estate agent, one of the top 25 producing agents in Central Florida. Kevin brings deep knowledge of market trends, the latest home buyer programs, and cutting-edge real estate technology. So if you want more than just an agent, if you want a trusted guide who knows homes inside and out, call Kevin Crager with LPT Realty today. Your future home will thank you. I'm excited about today's episode. Some big changes going on at the radio station. You may have seen by now, Game On with myself and Mike Bianchi will go live on Monday, August 18th at 3 p.m. This podcast will continue. Got to keep the Zone Heads name alive in one way, shape, or form. You can also follow along on our Zone Heads Facebook page. But also, reemerging from the ashes, the Fantasy Fix is back for year 7 or 8. I've lost track at this point, but a new co-host will join me on this magic carpet ride, 10 to 11 a.m. every Sunday morning, starting week 1 of the NFL season, which is Sunday, September 7th. Casey Warner from 95.3 WDAE will be on with me throughout the season, and he's on with me right now. What's up, Casey? It is, and this, by the way, first time that Casey and I have met face-to-face.
Yeah, something like that, man. So I do remember producing Fantasy Fix a little bit last year with Zach Blobner, but I never got to see you face-to-face. So this is the first face-to-face meeting, if you will. But really great to talk to you, Brandon, finally on a podcast and talk some fantasy form. And yeah, I'm really excited for football season. I was just counting the days till college football. 11 days till college football, a little bit longer for NFL, but always appropriate to talk fantasy in the month of August.
And we're going to come through some of our names, some of our targets, some of the guys that we're avoiding, but just to generally get to know each other a little bit better. I love doing this show, and I think you're in for quite the treat. When we go live at 10 o'clock in the morning, I think the thing that is going to amaze you the most is how fast that hour flies. It'll be the fastest hour of your life, trying to consume all the information of the news that's out there so that we can spit it out to the audience, and then reacting to the load of questions that we get on the text line throughout the course of the show, spitting out our own opinions in the process. It's kind of like riding a tornado for about 60 minutes, and I'm excited to take that ride.
Yeah, no, me too. I remember when I was producing the show with you and your other co-host last year, I remember how fast it flew by, and just sitting there on a Bucks game day, starting with Fantasy Fix, then doing Bucks pregame and listening to the Bucks game all day, running that on the board, just a day full of football. And for me, it's work, but that's the dream come true for me, is working in sports, working in football, and especially NFL, which is definitely always been my favorite. So it's my pleasure, and I'm looking forward to it.
So you're definitely not an old man. I do not know how old you are or how long you've been playing fantasy, but give me a time frame, not based on year. I think we all remember, if you love fantasy enough, you can remember your first draft pick. Can you harken back to your first draft? Do you remember who your first pick ever was in fantasy football?
I sure can. This is what I always use as reference for anyone who I ever start conversation on fantasy football with, and anyone who needs to know how long I've been playing fantasy football. I'm 27 years old. So if you're good with math, I was born in 1997. So back then, fantasy football, no instant score updates, no live scores, nothing like that. But I started playing when I was 10 years old. I was about to be 10 years old. It was the season of 2007, the fall of 2007. And my first ever pick, he was coming off of an 1,000-yard season. He didn't have a long career, and I thought he had a little bit more in the tank. Tiki Barber of the New York Giants was my first ever fantasy football pick.
Tiki was on some of my original teams. You never forget the first. I actually started playing. I'm 40 years old, so I've got 13 years on you. I only started playing fantasy football 4 years before you did.
Wow.
I was always a football fan, but the fantasy thing just it didn't really become a thing for me. I don't know if it was for other people at that time, but it didn't become a craze for the people that were in my circle until about 2003 when I graduated from high school. And then once I jumped in, it was just, it was a full go from there. Randy Moss with the Oakland Raiders was my first ever.
What a bust those 2 years, huh?
He wasn't great. I did wind up he was also not only my first ever draft pick, Casey, he was also my first trade. I remember swapping him for Edgerrin James with the Indianapolis Colts, which turned out to be a pretty good for me.
Yeah. I mean, I always remember Edgerrin James finishing his career with the Cardinals there. So that's definitely going back when he was with the Colts.
I had a moment one time, a drunken night of standing in line to get a pizza at the end of the night, and the guy standing in front of me in Orlando, Florida, to get a pizza at about 2:00 in the morning was Edgerrin James, and I drunkenly told him how much I appreciated his fantasy contributions, and I don't think he gave a damn about any of that. Who when you so we're kind of going back in time here of the first person that we drafted. We all also have that one that has meant the most to us throughout the course of our fantasy careers, because this is sort of like a part-time job, taking part whether you have a or not. Is there a guy, like, if you had a Casey Hall of Fame, who's the first inductee for you as far as the guy that would wear that crown?
There's two for me. They're really neck and neck because nobody, and I mean nobody, saw these two seasons coming. So the first one for me was Michael Turner when he joined the Atlanta Falcons and he finally got that role as a starter. He had been, the backup to LaDainian Tomlinson in San Diego at the time. They had Darren Sproles there. It was just a really muddled depth chart. He gets to Atlanta. I take him as a sleeper, I think, in probably the 6th or 7th round, I want to say. And he goes for 1,600 plus yards. And I mean, he just absolutely broke out, was a stud that season. Nobody saw it coming, but I knew it was going to happen. I knew what he was made of. I love that one. And then the other one that's tied is right with my name. My name's Casey Warner. I love Kurt Warner. I'm a Rams fan at heart, so I drafted Kurt Warner and his revival season when he took the Cardinals to the Super Bowl against the Steelers. Nobody saw that coming. I think I got him in the last round of the draft, maybe the last round, or even maybe an undrafted guy picking up off the waiver wire, and he threw for over 4,000, 30-something touchdowns, and the rest is history. So Kurt Warner in his first Cardinals season and Michael Turner in his first Falcons season.
It's one of my favorite things to do in fantasy is to find the old quarterback that gets the revival year. I remember drafting Brett Favre in one of his last years in Green Bay, but for whatever reason at the time, people had given up on him in fantasy, and it was the same kind of thing. He came back, had a great season, and helped me win a championship that year. Because of that, and we both now have that experience of taking a quarterback late and then them riding you to glory. Are you a quarterback late kind of drafter in fantasy?
See, I'm really torn on this because in recent years, I've gone away from it. I really have. And it's came back to bite me because I've been a guy that I look at the running quarterbacks and I, take that into account. And it's came back to hurt me in recent years. I've kind of went the Patrick Mahomes route in recent years, taking him in, maybe the 3rd, 2nd round, even if I have to reach. And it hasn't paid off, especially not last year. So I think I'm going to go back to the late quarterback round draft pick this season because it's definitely came to hurt me. If I can get Lamar Jackson or I can get a Josh Allen, a steal, maybe a Jaden Daniels this season pretty early, I think I might take a flyer on that, but I got to stick to what's won me the most games, and that's taking the quarterback late.
If I can get those guys that I'm not anti-quarterback early in a draft, but I got to hit the 3rd round first. I need to build the roster. Sure. Ideally, running back, wide receiver. I also am quite enamored with Brock Bowers early on in drafts this year. So let's get into it. We've got a couple of guys that are targets for us, a couple of guys that we are going to avoid, and we'll have to sort of track this throughout the season, Casey, to see if those were good ideas for us or not. I'll go ahead. I'm going to give you my avoid list, and then you can react to that, and we'll kind of bounce back and forth from there. Tyreek Hill is a guy I want absolutely no part of this year. I don't trust the attitude, the age. He wasn't that good last year to begin with, and then at the end of the season quit on his team. And we're still seeing this guy getting drafted like he's a top 12 wide receiver. There are too many good receivers around that range that I trust for me to invest in him. Talk about the quarterbacks. Patrick Mahomes, love the player in real life. In fantasy, he just hasn't been that good the last couple of years, but his name still has him. I do a top 12 list, and that series is on this podcast channel if you guys want to go back and find that. I still have Mahomes as my 6th overall quarterback, but at the point that the best of the best are off the board, I'm in wait mode, and so I'm not going to take that plunge on Mahomes. And then I don't know if you're going to cringe at this one, but Ashton Genty for me. I really like Genty. he's another guy that's being way overdrafted. I wouldn't touch him with a 10-foot pole in the first round. Too many other rookies that I'm excited about that you can get 2 or 3 rounds later. So Genty to me is too expensive. Those are my avoids. Tyreek Hill, Patrick Mahomes, Ashton, Genty.
I definitely agree with the Tyreek Hill take. I mean, I think that the Miami Dolphins offense, which can be so potent, we've seen in the last couple seasons, when healthy and together, and that's the key statement right there. When healthy and when they're together. I really think that the Dolphins have more of a chance to be a disaster this season than to hit like 70 points even one time like they did a couple of seasons ago. I just don't see it. I think there's too much drama there with Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle being in the mix, and then you got Mike McDaniel, who has not really been the coach everybody thought he was going to be. Tua can't stay healthy, of course. My money would be on that to be a do-not-draft guy. I like that. Patrick Mahomes, again, a guy that's going to get you to the Super Bowl but hasn't been a fantasy stud the past couple seasons. With my experience drafting him early last year, I got to agree with that. And then the last one, Ashton Genty, he's definitely not a first-rounder for me. I do like Ashton Genty, but I in no way, shape, or form am taking him in the first round. So I don't disagree with any of those, Brandon. I like that.
All right, let's hear what you got. Who are you Xing out on draft night?
Yeah, so these are 3 guys that I've been talking about for weeks now. I actually put out a video on our WDAE social page. You can follow us at 95.3 WDAE here in the Tampa Bay area. And this was before his injury. My first one is Joe Mixon. He was injured about 3 weeks ago, and he's now questionable to start the season. Of course, you got Nick Chubb lurking back there. He's got something to prove coming off of a knee injury himself. CJ Stroud, I think, is going to have a bounce-back season after a down sophomore season. And you even got Woody Marks back there, who's going to be stealing some passing down work as the third-string running back slotted in right there in front of Dameon Pierce last I checked. So really not looking to draft Joe Mixon at all. I know he had a good season last year. He's still a talented back, but I'm not drafting him as my RB1 or even RB2. Moving on to Garrett Wilson is another guy to avoid. Here's the thing with Garrett Wilson. Brandon, I like Garrett Wilson. I like him as a decent wide receiver 2, a good wide receiver 3, but I do not like him as a wide receiver 1. His current ADP is around 13, 14, which is in the wide receiver 1 range for most guys drafting in 12 to 14 team leagues. I'm not taking him as a wide receiver 1 at all. I hate the quarterback situation. Justin Fields is already hurt. We know he likes to run. We know he's not too good in the clutch with his arm. That being said, I liked him better with Aaron Rodgers last year. He had a pretty good season. I think he's not even going to do any better than that with Justin Fields. So avoiding Garrett Wilson, and I'm also avoiding Brock Purdy. Brandon Ayuk is going to be out till at least week 5. Brock Purdy doesn't have Deebo Samuel anymore. He's got a new contract, which adds pressure to his plate. And I think he really crumbles under that pressure. I think CMC is a long shot to play 17 games. They're going to lean on him too much. And once he goes down, he's not going to have CMC. He's not going to have Deebo. He may not have Ayuk till about halfway through the season. I'm avoiding Brock Purdy, even though he got the big money.
And he was putting up some big numbers last year. That's one that I think if he still had his full allotment around him, if Deebo was still there, if Ayuk was healthy, then I think I'd be in on him because of his 7th round stature. In a lot of people's minds, he's still not a star quarterback, but last year he kind of played like one. And we're just talking in fantasy here. I think when we talk about him going out and actually winning games and being the number 1 reason why, I'd be more hesitant on that. But I'm with you. There's too much crumbling around him, and it's kind of a prove it year for the guy. So there's no reason to invest. I understand where you're coming from with Garrett Wilson. I can't get there, though. This guy has dealt with so much bad quarterback play in his career, and he just cranks out 1,000 yards and 100 catches no matter what. So I think Justin Fields, he's not a great quarterback, but he will lock in on that one target. DJ Moore was still a star wide receiver with Justin Fields as his quarterback. So that's a guy that around that range, I feel like he is properly priced. Joe Mixon, with you 1,000%. I've done a number of best ball drafts on Underdog already. I always scroll right past Joe Mixon. Just doesn't have the pop for me at the running back position that I'm looking for at this stage in his career. A little too injury prone. As far as the targets, the guys that I am after, I am drafting so much Jackson Smith-Njigba. He really popped last year. I think he actually gets an upgrade at quarterback. I like Sam Darnold a little bit more than I like Geno Smith. They moved off of DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett. I mean, they basically said, JSN is our guy. You bring over Cooper Kupp, just enough to alleviate some of that coverage, but I still think the idea is this is Jackson Smith and Jigba's offense. They want to build around that guy. One of my others was going to be Omarion Hampton, but I'm going to push him to the side for a moment. I have fallen deeply in love with Travion Henderson of the New England Patriots after what he did in the preseason. 100-yard kickoff, broke a tackle out by the sideline on a passing play, caught 3 balls from Drake May. Had like 60% of the targets while Drake May was in the game. He's a speed demon who can break tackles. He was the #1 recruit coming out of high school at Ohio State. He split time with Quinshon Judkins, so just didn't put up the numbers that some of these other star running backs did in college, but he's amazing. Really impressed with him. And then I can't stop drafting Dak Prescott. We're talking about a quarterback a couple of years ago that was one of the top quarterbacks in fantasy football. He got hurt last year. Whatever. I'm going to pair him with another quarterback. If we deal with injury again, we'll just swap him out for the backup. The defense is still bad. Could be worse if they don't figure out this Micah Parsons situation, and they can't run the football, and they added George Pickens, so their passing game should get even better. So JSN, Travion Henderson, Dak Prescott are the 3 guys that I am locked in on.
You want to talk about a guy that's a quarterback you could definitely take late. That's Dak Prescott. I have no issue taking Dak Prescott in 8th, 9th round, maybe even later if you can get him that late. I love the value there. Travion Henderson is the one that concerns me. I don't know about that muddled backfield in New England. Over the years in fantasy, one of the things I've learned is never trust a New England back. Like it drives me crazy, man. I want to say the last dependent back they had was what? Ramondre 2 or 3 seasons ago. He had an
Ramondre is good. You could go way back, Corey Dillon, but I feel like a lot of that way back. I feel like a lot of that was Bill Belichick related. Yeah. And Mike Vrabel is a Belichick guy, but Vrabel also coached Derrick Henry. If he's got a guy, he's going to ride that player. Ramondre has fumble issues too. So if he continues to have that and he's not explosive, Travion Henderson is. This is an offense that needs explosion. I don't know how many weeks they can go into the season with this in their back pocket and say, why don't we just give this guy the ball more and help out our offense? It's not like they're getting explosive plays from Stephon Diggs. He's over the hill. Their wide receiving core is not good. There are concerns to be had. Where he's priced right now is perfect. If he has another elite performance in the preseason, he's going to jump up into the back end of the 2nd round. At that point, I might have to cool off on him.
Yeah, by all means, if you can get him at the value pick there, if you can slot him in as your RB
4th, maybe
something like that, add him as depth, I'm all for it. And then I agree with what you said about Cooper Kupp coming to Seattle. I mean, he's on and off the field at this point in his career. He's far past being a wide receiver 1, maybe not even a wide receiver 2. Jackson Smith and Jigba, I think, is definitely going to keep developing. So no really issues with those 3 there. Like what you got there, Brandon. And here's my 3 must draft players. Number 1 is the one I'm very much feeling confident about. In fact, I really love this offense up there in Duval. Not Brandon Thomas. I'm thinking about Brandon Kravitz here. Brian Thomas Jr. is who I'm going with my number 1 must draft. He's a stud, man. I mean, he showed it in his rookie season. He's a guy I think you could get as your wide receiver 1 in the rounds of 2, maybe even 3 if you're lucky. He's going to be a monster. I think he's going to draw a lot of attention away from Travis Hunter and vice versa. I think those guys are going to work well together. You saw what Liam Cohen did with the offense in Tampa Bay last year, and he really went lights out with it. I mean, they were a top 5 offense. I don't think anybody expected for Baker Mayfield to put up the numbers that he did last year. So I think that Trevor Lawrence, pending his health, is going to put up similar numbers. I think a lot of that goes to Brian Thomas Jr. since Travis Hunter is the new trendy toy everybody's going to be focusing on. So I love Brian Thomas Jr. And then furthermore, I have Chase Brown. I think that Chase Brown is somebody that can win you a league, man. I mean, there is no legitimate RB2 in that room. Right now, you got Samaje Perine, who's going to be that number 2, who I really just don't have any faith in, even though they said he's going to get some passing down work. I don't see it. I think he's going to take a lot of pressure off of Joe Burrow. He's going to get a lot of passing work. He had 54 receptions last year, and I think he's definitely a bet to top 54 receptions this year if Joe Burrow has as good of a season as he did last year. So I love Chase Brown, and that Bengals offense is the RB1, the bell cow. And then this last one, this may surprise you, Brandon. This is a guy that's had trouble staying healthy, definitely last year. He only played 9 games. It's Evan Ingram in the in the Denver Broncos offense, as opposed to being in the Jacksonville Jaguars offense last year. So If he can stay healthy, I love what he can do in a Sean Payton offense. I think he harkens back to maybe even some of the Jimmy Graham days in Sean Payton's offense. Maybe not as athletic as Jimmy Graham, definitely seen better days because he's 30 years old. But young quarterbacks need a go-to tight end. And I think he can be that for Bo Nix. I think the offense is only going to develop more under year 2 with Bo Nix and Sean Payton together. I think Sean Payton's going to love to have him as that security blanket across the middle. And I could see Evan Ingram being an easy fantasy top 10 tight end.
You and I were not in complete lockstep with your avoid list. We are completely symbiotic on the target list. I love Brian Thomas Jr. I think he is well worthy of a top 10 overall pick in fantasy. Chase Brown is a guy that I have warmed up to as the season approaches. I did my top 12 running backs in the top 12 series, and I didn't have Chase Brown in there. I regret that. He has slid into the podcast is already out there, so I can't change that, but he has slid into my top 12. So I'm with you there. That offense is just too good. You want pieces of it. And then Evan Ingram, I was between, should I nominate Dak Prescott as my third name or Evan Ingram? He was going to be my other one. I'm with you. Sean Payton always finds a way to elevate those tight ends, especially the athletic ones that have that sort of dual ability, and they spent a lot of money on him in free agency. So they're basically telling you, we plan on using this guy. Casey, I cannot wait to chop it up with you every single week. This is going to be so much fun. 10 to 11 a.m. every Sunday morning on 96.9 The Game in Orlando and on 95.3 WDAE in Tampa. Stream us on the iHeartRadio app. That starts on Sunday, September 7th. A true pleasure getting to know you better, Casey. It's the best way for guys to get to know each other is just talk fantasy.
It really is, man. Fantasy football is how I met a lot of friends growing up, still in a lot of friends' leagues from back home in Kentucky. It follows you everywhere you go, man. It's always a pleasure.
That does it for this week's episode. We'll be back at it next week with more great fantasy content, sports betting as well. College football season approaches, so I'll have some analysis there. Visit my website, zoneheadsmedia.com, to keep up with everything I've got going on. Also, at Brandon Kravitz and at Zoneheads on social, and we will chat.